Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to what's hopefully going to be an incredible episode of Live at the Waterhole this afternoon. You are joining me, Maxine, for my very first Live at the Waterhole. I'm really excited to be getting involved in Live at the Waterhole with Africam and to be chatting with you about the goings on at all the waterholes. And we're starting this afternoon with Tembe Elephant Park in Maputoland in KZN, which is not too far from where I am right now. I live in northern KZN, so this is quite close to home. And what a beautiful way to start with a herd of ellies at the waterhole. So welcome everyone, looking forward to some interesting chats and questions and answers and discussions as we sit and watch what's happening at the various waterholes today. Beautiful tusker there. They all seem to be standing in the shade. It's quite a warm day in KZN this afternoon, so that is not surprising. Looks like some of the elephants are having a bit of a dust bath. Really important for getting rid of skin parasites and also for just protecting their skins from the sun. Great to see some of our regulars with us. Hello everyone that's joining us. Thanks, Catherine. Nice to be on board, and I'm sure we're going to have a great show this afternoon. Oh, that one Ellie is having such a lovely scratch against the tree. I'm sure that tree could tell a few stories over the years with the number of elephants that must have come and drunk at the waterhole and then gone to rest in the shade and had a little scratch rubbing off the mud and just scratching all those hard to reach places. I'm sure if you could walk next to that tree, you would see a lot of mud caked right up higher than your head, where the elephants have scratched the mud off themselves. You can hear some brown-hooded kingfishers calling in the background. Oh, and I think we're going to pop over to King's Camp now, and something interesting happening in the water there. So let's go and see. We'll probably head back here in a little while to see these ellies. How awesome is that? this hippo's got a couple of passengers riding on him today. He's got a grey heron and a little terrapin who've decided to catch a ride. He doesn't seem to mind too much. An incredible close-up there. You can really see the skin of the hippo. Oh, there's a little, look like an Egyptian goose's head popping up in the background. Yes, there it is again. But yeah, look at the skin of that hippo with the the paws, how visible those paws are. Shame, he also looks like he has a bit of an injury on his side there. At this time of year with water holes drying up, we've had a bit of rain, but it really hasn't been enough to fill the water holes nicely or get the rivers, some of the seasonal rivers and streams flowing. And so the hippos are under a lot of pressure, and often you'll find they have battle scars on them at the moment, fighting for positions in the kind of diminishing water supplies. This is lovely though. Can't really see what the Terrapin's doing something with his back leg. Almost like some exercises, stretching it back and forth. Ooh, there's two Egyptian geese now. I can't hear the Egyptian geese. I don't know if you guys are hearing them, but I'm sure they are loud. Oh, there we go. Yes, thanks, Nadine. Nadine's just sorted it out. I can hear them now. Egyptian geese seem to just be loud wherever they are. They can't help themselves. They have to make a noise. We have a pair that live close to my home, and they make that noise most mornings sitting on the top of the roof. That's how we wake up in the morning. Thank you, Lenny. It's great to be here at Live at the Waterhole. I'm really looking forward to doing some time viewing these waterholes. Gosh, those geese are really not happy. Thanks, Penelope. It's great to be back. It really is great to be back. Looking forward to heading back to Juma later this month, and really looking forward to Live at the Waterhole in the interim. Seems like there's just one hippo in this waterhole today. That's quite usual. Waterholes that are small, you tend to find there'll be one or maybe two hippos. Any more than that, and they'll just get in each other's way and fight with one another. Yes, I don't know how to pronounce this name. Spas Lankov, you're saying it's the first time to see a heron and a terrapin on the back of a hippo. I have seen it before. It's not common, but it does happen. It's not often that you see both of them together. Terrapins like to hitch rides on hippos a lot, so you'll often find terrapins catching a ride. But to see a heron and a terrapin together is quite unusual. Very special sighting that. And just amazing to see how tolerant he seems to be of them. They're obviously not a threat to him. They're not bothering him too much. He's a big, strong hippo, so it's probably not too much of a physical hardship for him to have them on his back. And I suppose, as he moves around in the water, oh, there's another terrapin creeping up there now, a second one coming to join the fray. But as he moves around in the water, he's going to disturb all kinds of things that the heron and the terrapin can take advantage of. So for the heron and the terrapin, it works really well. He'll disturb fish and various maybe insects and crustaceans and things that both those species would like to eat. So kind of makes sense, I suppose. Looks like a really hot and dry day in the Timbavati today. That second terrapin is just poking his head out every now and then on the left of the hippo. Looks like he wants to come up, but maybe struggling to get out of the water. Yeah, the geese have suddenly gone quiet, and it's lovely that they're quiet because now you can pick up on some of the other sounds that they were drowning out. That Egyptian goose is giving us a really nice view of his front and the kind of derivation of the Afrikaans name for the goose, which is kolgans, and kolgans means basically spot goose, and it's because of that very bright, or I shouldn't say bright, but dark spot in the middle of the chest of the goose. So that's where the Afrikaans name for this goose comes from. Nice view of that. Oh, Hippo has decided he wants to move. Something bothered him there. I wonder what. It seemed like he was reacting to something. I think there might be an elephant. Yes, I see. So yeah, that's it. Okay, there's the trunk. Okay, so that's what he was reacting to. A couple of ellies coming down to drink. Let's just listen to the sound of them drinking for a bit. That was so sweet. It almost looked like it was, what do you say, when like choreographed. They were kind of drinking in time, putting it in their mouth at the same time, slurping up at the same time. Looks like possibly a mother and an older calf. I was just trying to count how many times they drank there, and if you think that an elephant puts about 6 liters into its trunk at one go, there's probably between 36 and 40 liters that the adult drank in that short space of time. Looks like it's not finished. Oh, Hippo's not happy with the ellies coming this close. Riley's asking, do you think that elephants can pick up on the movements of the cameras and the audio? I'm sure they can. They're so sensitive. But I think, if they visit a waterhole like this often, they would probably get used to it. They might react the first time, but once they come time and time again, if the camera's moving around and making a noise, they probably eventually get used to it, just like you can habituate a lion or a leopard to game drive vehicles and to the noises and movements of those. I'm sure regular visitors to these waterholes would, excuse me, get used to the noises of the cameras. So I don't think it would bother them too much. Spaz Lankov is asking what the rarest animals would be that come down to this waterhole. Spaz, I'm not sure. Being kind of my first time to do live at the waterhole, I have spent time looking and observing live at the waterhole, but I can't say that I would know. I mean, it's the Timbavati Game Reserve, so it's part of the Greater Kruger. So some of the rarer animals in that area would be things like wild dog and cheetah. whether they have been seen at this waterhole or not, I'm not sure. And then obviously things like pangolin, they love to drink. And I've seen some amazing video footage of pangolins having a marvelous time in the water, rolling around and bathing. So pangolins may use a waterhole like this. Just trying to think of other rare species that would be around in that area. Yeah, on aardvark, I'm not sure how often they are seen, but they certainly do occur in the Timbavati. They would also need to drink water. So yeah, I'm sure that there could be some rare species coming down to the specific hole, but I can't say that I've personally seen any of those species here. It must be quite intimidating for that hippo, though, because this is a very small waterhole. So it must be really, I would imagine, quite scary for him when elephants come close. Elephants, as big as hippos are, elephants are much bigger, and they could do some damage if they wanted to. They normally wouldn't. They might just assert their dominance by flicking their trunk at him. But they normally wouldn't get into a fight with a hippo. Benji Boo is asking if there are any cameras that I would love to see. Gosh, I'm so looking forward to seeing them all. I think what I'd really love to see is some of the ones in Kenya, especially if there's a striped hyena that comes down. I lived for a while in Kenya, and striped hyena was really on my bucket list, and I never got to see one up there. So that would be really cool. Nadine says they only come out when we're not live. I would imagine they'd be very nocturnal, the striped hyenas, but yeah, that would be incredible to see striped hyena at one of the water holes. But yeah, I just love the fact that we can hop from one to the other all around Africa, see the different weather conditions that are happening, the way the season is changing differently at each hole. I mean, if you just compare what we've been looking at this afternoon with Tembe and then up in the Timbavati, KZN is so much greener. We've had a lot of rain here in KZN. And although there has been a bit of rain up north in Mpumalanga and Limpopo, definitely not as much as we've had here. So interesting to see how the climate and the seasonal changes happen slightly differently depending on where you are, even in just one country. Oh, that grey heron looked like he was catching something off the tree. I don't know what that grey heron was doing there. He looked like he was grabbing something off the tree. I suppose he might have been grabbing an insect. But anyway, we're going to head over to Oldonyo now, which is in Kenya, and see what's happening there. I'm quite excited for that. Oh, lovely. We've got looks like a Thompson's gazelle. Normally, Tommies would be in normally Thompson's gazelles would be in groups. So I'm assuming if we panned out, we would probably see a few more Thompson's gazelles, and not just the one. It would be quite unusual to just see one Thompson's gazelle on its own. You do get another gazelle species up in Kenya called the Grant's gazelle, which is sometimes in smaller groups, but they look a little bit different to the Tommies. Shame, it looks like the flies are really bothering this gazelle, shaking his tail around. Does look like a male, just looking at the horns. Gazelles, the males and females, have horns, but the male's horns are normally a little bit thicker and more robust. It's really interesting, though. It does look like he's on his own, which, oh, there's an eland. That's lovely. Now that looks like it could be a female eland, just judging by her horns, just quite thin, unless it's a young male. I think it's a female, though. This Tommy looks really thirsty. He hasn't stopped drinking. He keeps having a little break to just check around for predators, which is natural. But he's obviously walked a long way to get his fill of water today. Terry's asking which areas in Africa are the most affected by overgrazing. Wow. I think overgrazing is quite widespread, Terry, in a lot of areas in Africa. I've seen it, down in, I've traveled quite extensively in Africa, and I've seen overgrazing in almost every country that I've traveled in. So yeah, I can't say that that there's one specifically. I think obviously the drier parts of Africa, so the semi-desert into more desert areas, are more sensitive to overgrazing. Oh, looks like we've got a leopard tortoise coming down for a drink too. That's lovely. Gosh, he must have also traveled a long way and taken a long time to get down to have a drink here. It looks pretty dry, although the bush is quite nice and green, but there's not much grass around, so I'm thinking it's still quite dry up there. Okay, Nadine's just telling me that they do sometimes pump this pan if it gets very dry, but that there has been a little bit of rain over the last few days. So that's good to know. Can see some birds flitting past. They're coming so quickly past the camera, it's difficult to see what they are, but I'm assuming they're swallows or swifts. Yeah, it would be lovely to see some of the different birds that you get to see up in Kenya compared to Southern Africa. A lot of the families are the same, but species can be quite different up there to what we see down here. I see Kim Faustino is saying it's the first time that she has seen a Thompson's gazelle here. That's great. Yeah, I'm still finding it quite strange that it was just one Thompson's gazelle and not lots of them. And Catherine is saying that she saw 2 striped hyenas a few weeks ago in Laikipia. That is unbelievable, Catherine. I'm very jealous. I spent a lot of time up in East Africa and looked quite hard for striped hyena and just never managed to find them. tortoise is having a long, long drink. Obviously very, very thirsty. So lovely to see the dragonflies flitting past every now and then. Water is just such an incredible source of life for all kinds of things. Birds, insects, reptiles, mammals. It's amazing. Oh, and even a butterfly coming past. I had a very brief view. It looked like maybe a swallowtail, one of the swallowtails. Oh, Nadine's saying you often see lovely butterflies here. I love my butterflies. And again, the species up in East Africa, some are similar to here, but some are quite different. I'm a bit rusty on my butterfly species up in East Africa, but if we do get some nice views, I'll give it a good shot. We are now over in Lentor, which is also in Kenya, and got some lovely plains zebra here. Oh, this waterhole looks lovely and shady and cool. Looks like a great spot to spend the day. Looks like possibly some baboons in the background there. Probably an olive baboon, if it's Kenya. Oh, what a peaceful scene, just watching these zebra drinking in the shade. Sure. It's difficult to see, but there is a lot of insect activity at this waterhole. I can just see lots of movement, things flying past the camera really quickly. Difficult to make out exactly what they are, but the insect life is back. It's amazing with summer here now. Just lots and lots of insects. Getting a question from Bush Girl asking why woodpeckers are keystone species. Bush Girl, I've never actually heard of woodpeckers referred to as keystone species. So a keystone species is generally a species that has quite a dramatic impact on the environment, and can literally change the ecosystem in a dramatic way. So things like elephants would be considered keystone species because they are capable of knocking over trees and, turning thick bush into grassland or much more open areas, and they're almost architects of the environment and of habitat type. So I'd love to know where you read about woodpeckers being keystone species, and I'm trying to understand how they could be. So, I mean, they do obviously make holes in trees that are used by many other birds, because many birds can't actually make a hole themselves. And so if they are hole nesting birds, they would rely on holes that have been made by woodpeckers. So, in my mind, perhaps that's why they would be considered keystone species. I'll have to do some research on this, though. But that's the reason I would think, is that perhaps so many other bird species are dependent on them for breeding purposes, and perhaps that's why they are considered keystone species. But I can't say that I've ever read anything about them being keystone species. So I'm quite interested now. You've sparked my interest, and I will do some research. I'll do some further research on that. I see I'm getting something here from Nadine. So let's see what she's saying. Yeah, it seems like that is the case. They say in this little snippet that Nadine sent through to me, woodpeckers, master carpenters of the bird world, are called keystone species for their crucial role in creating a habitat suited to other woodland wildlife. So abandoned woodpecker nest holes become nests or roosts for small owls and for other birds and even other mammals, things like squirrels, chipmunks, all kinds of other creatures would use their holes. So, okay, that makes sense to me. Really interesting question there. Thank you for that question. Thank you, Penelope. Who was it? Penelope, who asked me that question? I've lost it now. No, it was Bush Girl. Thanks, Bush Girl. That was an interesting question. Nara is asking if I've been to this part of Kenya before. Nara, I've never been to Lentor, no. Most of my time in Kenya was spent in the Masai Mara, so right down south on the border with Tanzania. I did do a little sojourn further north up to Uganda through Kenya, but the majority of my time in Kenya when I was working up there was actually in the Mara. And to be honest, I'm actually not sure exactly where Lentor is in Kenya. I'm assuming it's down south just because of the species that I'm seeing here, but I don't know the exact location. I'm going to have to figure that out. It's not on my little list of all the waterholes. I think it's quite a new one, and I haven't got it on here. So to be honest, I'm not sure of the exact location of Lentor. Okay, so Nadine's telling me it's in Kirimatian in Kenya. I have no idea where Kirimatian is. Let's see if I can find out for you. These baboons are having such an amazing time. Okay, let's see where Lentor is. Okay, so it's quite close to where I would have worked actually. It's close to Lake Natron, and it's quite close to the Tanzanian border. So it's in that area that I would have worked in. So yeah, I would have been in this vicinity before in Kenya, but not at this exact spot. Whole troop is coming down to drink now. It's so lovely. Little ones, big ones. Oh, baboons are so entertaining. That little one kicked one of the adults. Very cute. I'm getting some more questions and comments about keystone species here now. So Joan Mello is saying that she heard frogs and toads were keystone species. Again, I haven't heard that. I know they are good indicator species. So because they absorb a lot of environmental toxins through their skin and pollutants and air pollution and things like that through their skin, they are very good indicators of healthy environments. So if you have a lot of if you have a good species diversity of frogs and toads in your area, then you know that probably there's not high levels of water or air pollution in the area. If the frogs and toads are there and they're healthy, then it's a good sign of a healthy environment. So I know that they indicate a species, but I'm not sure about them being keystone species. I'm going to have to go and do some reading after this show on the various keystone species that there are. I mean, I gave a really big example. There are many species that would be considered keystone species, depending on, how many other species are dependent on them in the environment. So things like termites could be keystone species for their ability to kind of dramatically, take vegetation and matter that has a lot of carbon in it and take that underground and allow it to decompose there. So they would also be considered keystone species. You can see that female there is quite, she looks like she's coming to estrus, like she's really ready to possibly mate with a male. Very swollen rump. Water will be such an important place for animals like this to congregate and socialize and have a little bit of downtime. But obviously they need to be quite alert because water attracts all kinds of creatures that are coming down for a drink, predators included. So as much as it's a lovely place to sit and relax, there's always got to be someone on the lookout. The way baboons are they seem to be so mischievous. I'm kind of almost waiting for one of those little ones to just push someone in. But they haven't done that. There is a buzz of insect activity at this waterhole. I can hear a... Oh, we're back. We're at Juma now. I see. Sorry, I didn't just see that we'd swapped waterholes entirely. I can hear an African hoopoe calling in the background. I believe the feed at Lentor was frozen, so we've come across to Juma to see what's happening there. Amazing to see how the trees are all greening up in Juma, getting their leaves with the little bit of rain and the change of season. Even the grass is looking so much greener than when I was there. I think we're going to pop over to Tau Lodge now in the northern part of the country, Madikwe Game Reserve. So let's see what's happening at the Africa camera at Tau Lodge. Oh, we've got some waterbuck. Male and female, that's lovely. Being true to their name, standing in the water. You can see it looks like they're not really drinking, they're just taking advantage of the lovely green grass that is sprouting close to the edge of the water. You can hear a grey go-away bird in the background. Oh, there's a second head that's just popped up there. That was cute. Second female waterbuck. She looks like she's paying attention to something. Something got her attention. None of the others seem too concerned. Thank you, Cat Fan. It's really great to be on live at the waterhole. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Faustino is saying they look small, but they are actually the same size as a plain zebra. They their shoulder height is probably similar to a plain zebra or a virtual zebra down here, but they're not as stocky. They're definitely not as stocky as a zebra. But a big male waterbuck is certainly not small. They are very they are very impressive antelope. He's got a few females there. There's a few on the other side. Some zebra in the distance. And some ellies coming down to drink. Or possibly moving away from drinking. That one looks like it may have already had something to drink. Guy looks like he's just resting that heavy trunk. I love it when they do that, when they just settle their trunks onto the ground to rest. Must be quite something for those neck muscles to hold the head kind of high enough that the trunk isn't dragging along the ground, or to, with the trunk muscles to hold the trunk above the ground. Must be quite nice every now and then to just let everything relax. Lots of different species gathered around this waterhole today. Ellie's having a nice dust bath there. Obviously quite windy at Tau today. You can see as he throws the dust that it's just being carried away by the wind. Chandra is asking if elephants can sleep standing without leaning on anything. So I think they can snooze standing up, but they are also quite capable of lying down to sleep. A lot of people think they can't, but they do. They can lie flat on their sides. And I would think when they do that, they maybe go into a deeper sleep than when they are standing up. But they are capable of really resting quite deeply standing up without leaning on anything as well. They don't need to lean on anything to rest on all 4 feet. But then if they really are quite tired, they can stand up. They can lie down. I was just last month, when was it? Not that long ago, I was in the Kruger Park on a trail, and we came across a spot where an elephant had obviously rested for the night, and it was amazing to see the imprint of his body, of his whole body in the grass, and then the imprint of his tusks, obviously as he was getting up, where he kind of gouged some of the sand out as he was putting pressure on them to get himself up. But where he was sleeping, the ground was slightly sloped. And I have noticed that with elephants, when they do choose to lie down, especially the bigger ones, they'll often choose to lie down on a termite mound where it's a little bit sloped and just that much easier to get onto their feet. But they don't have to. They can lie flat on the ground and get up. But it's obviously easier on a slope. And so I have often found Places where elephants have lain down for the night is where the ground is sloped. Just makes it easier for them. Penelope Kenyon is asking, do they ever suffer from foot rot through the dirty water? I don't think so. I've never heard of an elephant with foot rot because of dirty water. You know, I'm sure if they had a deep cut on their feet, it could possibly get infected if there was some kind of a bacterial problem in the water. But these animals are so tough. You know, they don't live in sanitized environments like we do as humans. They are exposed to many germs and viruses and bacteria all through the day, and their bodies are generally quite well equipped at recognizing and reacting very quickly to any form of invasion, whether it be a bacterial infection or a virus or a parasite. Their immune system is primed because of the amount of exposure that they get to all these germs, if you want to call them that. So they're very tough, and they generally don't get infections very easily. A little wound, you know, if every single wound that they got badly infected, that would be a big problem. So generally they seem to cope quite well, and they don't get, their wounds don't become infected that often. So foot rot, I'm not sure if you're meaning something like hoof rot, which horses can get. I know horses can get some form of hoof rot, but I've never heard of it in elephants. It would really be very debilitating for an elephant to get something like foot rot with their weight and how far they have to travel. You know, I think it would almost be a death sentence for an elephant. So I would imagine that those that possibly were prone to getting something like that probably wouldn't have survived long enough to breed and pass those weaker genes on to the next generation. It seems so peaceful at this waterhole today. Lots of animals around, lots of different species. Everyone seems pretty relaxed. The waterbuck must obviously be fairly confident that there's no crocodile in this waterhole. Gosh, when you see how that waterbuck there was struggling to kind of get himself out of the mud, you can see how easy it could be as these waterholes dry up for an animal to get stuck in the mud and need help. He really seemed to have to, or she, should I say, it was a female, really had to almost pull herself out of the mud. Penelope's saying that she wonders where the crocs are. There are usually about 4 of them. Interesting. Yeah, I can't see any sign of any crocodiles today. And the water looks quite shallow. I'm sure we would see them if they were around. Well, the ellies seem to be moving away from the waterhole and they don't seem to be wet. So I'm wondering, actually the trunk on the one looks like it could be a little bit wet, but that doesn't look like they've been bathing in the water. Some blue wildebeest relaxing there in the full sun though. Wow. Looks like there could be some cattle egrets sitting on that branch in the distance as well. I love watching elephants come close to other species because there are days where they can be quite belligerent and they'll chase away any other species that are close to them. And then there are days like today where the two of them seem quite tolerant of those wildebeest, even though they've come right up to the wildebeest, but they haven't tried to chase them away. Often you'll see if an elephant's walking and there's something else in the path or close to the path where they want to walk, they'll flap their ears around and shake their trunks and kind of chase whatever it is away. And he's using his foot to dig for a root there. We are going to cross over now to the Africam camera at Safari Hook and see what's happening there. Let's have a look and see what's going on at Safari Hook. Wow, it looks incredibly dry here, but we've got some giraffe coming down to drink. That's lovely, and it looks like a little blacksmith lapwing on the island in the middle. And what is that? Possibly a springbuck on the left there, also coming down to drink. And in front of the giraffe we've got a wader. It could be what is that? A stork of some description. Can't see its beak, but it looks to me like it could be a black stork. You can see how similar the springbuck are to that Thompson's gazelle that we saw earlier on in the show. Quite a similar looking antelope. Not as the stripe on the side isn't quite as dark as the Tommy, but they are very similar in appearance. That does look like a black stork. I still can't see the beak very clearly, but it seems like it is a black stork. There we go. The light on that stalk is not great. They have very iridescent plumage when you get a nice look at them. They are beautiful stalks. Magnificent male giraffe here. I see Lady Macbeth is saying that the black stork is still unticked on her bird list. Lady Macbeth, I'm not sure whether you mean unticked in terms of not seeing it on Africam or on Safari, on any of these Africam cameras, or whether you mean in real life, whether it's unticked. I'm assuming you mean in real life. But yeah, that's yeah, they're not as common as some of the other storks to see, but in summer we do tend to see a few of them around. The woolly-necked stork is probably the most common of the storks to see throughout southern Africa, and it's always nice to see a black stork. Don't see them that often. They're quite nomadic as well, so although they don't migrate, they do kind of move around the country depending on where the food is, where the rains have fallen, where they can find food. So they could be in an area for a while and then they disappear because they've gone somewhere else in the country. So they're not migrants, but they do move a lot. And there's the little blacksmith lapwing chilling on the island. I can hear what sounds like little blue wax bulls. I can't see them. I haven't seen any on the camera, but I do hear blue wax bulls in the background somewhere. Looks very, very dry. Oh, there was something interesting that was drinking there. It almost looked like one of the small birds of prey. I could be wrong, but it seemed like a little accipiter or something. There's a dove. What is that? A little Namaqua dove. Maybe that was what flew away, but just the shape of it as it took off to me looked like a little bird of prey. But then I think what we have here is an Namaqua dove. Just looking at the long tail, and it's probably a female because I didn't see the black on the face of the male. Yeah, it looks like a female Namaqua dove. They're very pretty little doves. See the red on the wings as it flew away, quite distinctive. Generally find them in the drier parts of the country. Don't often see Namaqua dove in KwaZulu-Natal where I am because it's very high rainfall. Oh, there we go. There's a male and female together. You can see the male's face is quite dark. He's got like black patches on his face and his neck. And then the female is the one to the right, and she doesn't have the black. Beautiful little doves. They're quite small, very small in body compared to other doves, just with a long tail. Very, very pretty. It's always lovely to see a Namaqua dove. I see Victoria's asking me, which bird would you like to see which you haven't yet? I have a few, Victoria, but my bogey bird is the African pitta, or the Angola. It used to be called an Angolan pitta. And that's a bird I've made a few attempts to see. I've gone to places where they do occur, gone on birding trips specifically to see them. And yeah, I just haven't had any luck with that yet. So that is definitely the top of my bucket list in terms of birds that occur in South Africa. I obviously have a lot of birds in other parts of the world that I'd love to see, but the African pitta is definitely top of the list for me. But I love Namakwa doves. You see them every now and then in Greater Kruger. They're not as common in the Kruger as they would be here in Namibia or in the Kalahari and some of the drier areas. But you do see them every now and then. Oh, that giraffe is having a lovely drink there. Oh, and what have we got here? This is an interesting wader. Sitting in the shadow there, so a little bit difficult to make out any patterns. But that beak is quite long and a little bit upturned. So that should be, it could be a green shank. Could it be a green shank? A green shank's got a long upturned beak. It's just, I wish he would move into the sun a bit so I can see some more patterns, because the pteric sandpiper's also got quite a long and upturned beak. And the pteric has got slightly shorter legs than the green shank, and that chap doesn't look like it's got very long legs, but it is sitting in the grass. So it's a bit difficult to say. The pteric sandpipers, I think this is a pteric sandpiper. The beak is yellowish if you get it in the right light. But as I say, he's in the shade, so the colouring is a little bit tricky. But to me, it looks like it could be a pteric sandpiper. Lots of waders have those long beaks, but the long and the upturned kind of narrow it down a bit. And the two that come to mind is the green shank and the pteric sandpiper. Doesn't, if he's sitting, sometimes they sit where they kind of fold their knees and they sit, and then his legs would look shorter, because he does look like he's got a bit of barring on his tail. And barring on the tail would rule out a pteric sandpiper and make it more a common green shank. So I think, looking at the barring on the tail, that I'm actually going to go with common green shank. I didn't see that barring initially, but oh, I see John Kinghorn is just sending through a message now, and he's agreeing with me that it's a common green shank. Oh, good. I'm glad I got it right there. Yeah, he must be sitting with his legs bent. You often see waders doing that when they relax, because generally the common green shank's legs are quite long. So that threw me a bit to start, but I think he's just sitting in the grass with his legs bent at the knees. Nice bit of birding here at Safari Hook today. Lots of little swallows and swifts and things flying past too quickly for me to ID. Nice little group of springbuck coming down to drink. Some of those springbuck there look pregnant. The bellies look quite rounded. There are going to be lots of little babies arriving soon. Wildebeest and impala and springbuck, and right throughout southern Africa as our rainy season approaches and summer's in full swing, we're going to have lots of little ones around, which is always such an exciting time. That giraffe looks like he's camera shy. He's gone and placed himself directly behind the only tree that would be able to hide him from us. Gosh, it must be so hot there. It really doesn't look like there's a lot of shade for these giraffe or any of the bigger animals to go and find. Strange, is that a cloud formation in the background there, or was that a bit of a dust devil? There was a weird, almost looked like a cloud in the sky, but I think it may have been a dust devil, which is kind of like a little mini tornado that doesn't have the power to do much damage, but just whirls around. Some more springbuck coming down to drink. Nice little herd of them. Those of you that were watching earlier and remember the Thompson's gazelle, that's actually a lovely comparison there to see that the stripe on the side is similar, but it's not nearly as dark as the Thompson's. You can see how all of the springbuck have got horns, males and females. The females' horns are thinner and not as impressive as the males. They seem quite nervous, the springbuck. They are definitely very aware. Of all the animals we've watched drink today, the springbucks seem to be the most nervous. Maybe something's happened to them just before they got here, or perhaps they can smell something, but they are drinking, but very alert and watching around them. I think we're going to go over to Kwamaritani, Africam now and see what's happening that side. So here we are in the Pilansberg. Oh wow, look how close those elephants are to the hippo. And he doesn't seem particularly concerned about them. Lovely little herd of illies. Listen to them drinking. That hippo also seems to have a little terrapin on his back, or am I imagining things? It definitely looks like someone's hitching a ride. That little one seems to be having such fun with his trunk splashing around. Very, very cute. Jive Bunny is saying that the hippos only recently arrived at this waterhole. That's interesting, but it makes sense with the time of year and the rainfall. The waterhole places are drying up, and possibly some of the rivers are drying up, and these hippo are having to walk further to find the last remaining bits of water before our rainy season kicks in properly. So you'll probably find during the height of the rainy season, he'll move from here. Maybe go to a more suitable spot. Doesn't look like this waterhole's deep enough for him to cover his whole body, so I'm sure as summer carries on, he'll want to head somewhere where he can really submerge himself. But isn't that little elephant so cute? Has to make drinking a game. Splash and mess around with its trunk. So cute. Sounds like a very aggravated blacksmith plover in the background. There he is. Well, I wonder if the little guy's going to decide to chase him. No. The water's too enticing. Ray's saying, in your next life, you'll be an Ellie. I think that's a good decision. It looks like life could be fun if you're an elephant. Putting his whole face under the water. It looked at one stage like he was thinking about maybe giving the hippo a hard time. I'm saying it's a he. I actually can't see if it's a boy or a girl, but I'm calling it a he for now. It looked like he was thinking of giving the hippo a hard time and then decided it was more fun to just stick his whole face in the water. So cute. Oh, we've got a proper elephant pool party happening here, guys. It's gorgeous. I'm amazed that they're actually drinking there in the area where they're also splashing around, because you can see by the color change in the water that they're actually disturbing a lot of the mud at the bottom. And elephants can be quite fussy. They don't like to drink dirty water. They can if they need to, if there's no other choice. But often you'll find that they drink first and then play afterwards, or choose the water right at the surface where any of the dirt and debris has settled down below that. Or they'll go and find the area where the water is flowing into a waterhole like that, where it's really clean, and drink that. But these Ellies are drinking right in the area where the little one was fooling around and churning up the mud. Dr. Aristot's got an amusing comment here. The hippo must be watching Wild Earth on his underwater television as he appears oblivious to the Ellies. Yeah, I'm also amazed that he didn't move away from all of that fuss. But I get the feeling that the waterhole is quite small, so maybe he doesn't really have much of a choice. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a lot of room for him to move, but he was pretty close to all the Ellies and he didn't seem to be too concerned by them. The hippos can move with a burst of speed, so I suppose if one elephant took exception to him, he could probably move away quite quickly. They have very explosive speed when they need it. They can't keep that speed up for very long, but it can be quite explosive. Ask anyone who's canoed down the Zambezi River or gone canoeing in parts of Africa. It can be quite frightening when a hippo charges at your canoe, and they can go from 0 to very fast, very quickly. A little blacksmith lapwing on the side of the waterhole there. He was not happy earlier, I think, shouting at the elephants. I wonder if he doesn't have a little nest or some eggs or some chicks nearby that he was trying to protect. Seems like the elephants in the background are trying to move into some shade. Oh, shame. The youngster was trying to suckle, but Mum headed off. Gonna leave Kwamari Town now and link over to one of the other water holes. I think that could be King's Camp. There we go. We're back at King's Camp in the Timbavati, and our 3 terrapins. Oh, and a beautiful fish eagle calling in the background there. The terrapin there is doing what the one was doing earlier. It's like it's stretching out. Was that its head, actually? Maybe that's its head. The one earlier was stretching its legs out. But no, actually, that looks like it could be the head of that terrapin. You can see a few terrapins in the water around the... No, it does look like a leg. The terrapin on the left looks like it's doing yoga or Pilates or some form of exercises with its leg. Very strange. I've never seen that before. But the one earlier was doing it as well. It's like, oh, it's almost like a swimming motion that it's making with its back leg there. You can see the left back leg, then you've got the tail, and then the right back leg. But he was doing some warming up exercises. I love getting this close up of the hippo's skin and just seeing the patterning of the skin with those pores, the dark areas. And you can really see, we were talking about this earlier, how he's battle scarred he is. He's got a number of wounds on him. Gatran, it definitely is a hippo day. We've had a lot of hippo around today. Well, not a lot, because at every waterhole we've been to, it's just been one, but we have had hippos at a few of the waterholes doing some quite interesting stuff. But how amazing is this close-up of this hippo? It's so incredible to get this close, to see the real detail on the skin and the hairs on the face, wrinkles. Look how the nostrils closed before he put his front of his face down into the water. I don't know if you noticed that. That was really interesting. Just before he dipped the front of his muzzle into the water, those nostrils closed. Fascinating to see this close up. You can see how, even though he's quite immune, I would imagine, to most predators, and yet, even with his eyes closed and looking very relaxed in the water, those ears are constantly moving. He's listening to what's going on around him, very aware. You can see that terrapin there, the one in the middle. It's a very nice shot of how they draw their heads in sideways. So terrapins and tortoises, unlike turtles, can take their heads into their shells, but a tortoise kind of draws its head back straight, whereas a terrapin, when it wants to draw its head back under the shell, will actually do it sideways. And it was a really nice shot of the terrapin doing just that a second ago. It was lovely. Mindy is saying that the shells of the terrapin seem quite light colored. I think, Mindy, it might be the mud that has dried on them and given them a bit of a lighter look. I think if we had to give them a good wash, then those shells would be quite dark. So I don't think that they're actually that light. I think it's probably the color of the soil. So they've had mud on their shells, and then as they've kind of baked in the sun, that mud has dried, and the soil color is now shining through, or showing through. If you look very carefully at the shells, you can see some little dark patches, and that would be the actual color of the shell. Not that easy to see, but there's a couple of little dark spots here and there. So I do think that's more a little bit like warthogs. You know, they can look different colors depending on the soil where they have their burrows in. And they can look quite light if it's kind of light colored soil, or quite red if there's red soils with irons in them. I would imagine it's the same with these terrapins. Look at that one. It's so weird. I have no idea what they are doing when they, looks like they're doing kind of aerobics, water aerobics, except they're not in the water. I see the other one doing it as well now. I wonder if not just that he was trying to get some purchase, so he was trying to find a spot where his foot could push off. Almost looks like he's reaching to try find some land or some hippo's back to push himself. I think that's what it is. He's trying to push with his back leg, but he's not finding anything to push against. Very funny. I don't know if you can see there again, a really nice view of him pulling his head in sideways into his shell. Typical terrapin. Oh, there's a few more. Some have obviously been in the water. They're looking quite wet. Others have been sunbathing for a while. I think we're going to head across to Juma and have a look at what's going on there. Leave these terrapins to their sunbathing. Oh, lovely. We've got a nice herd of ellies coming down to the dam. Or what's left of the dam. But looks actually like they've already been at the dam. They all look quite wet, like they've had a bit of a mud bath. Hear a black-crowned chagra calling in the background. It's such a pretty call, one of my favorites. As I say that, he's now stopped calling. Lots of other bird chatter going on though. These elephants have definitely already had a really nice mud wallow, mud bath, pool party of some description. can hear a little chin spot batters calling in the background there as well. The typical 3 blind mice. And some ringneck doves. Lots of bird noise going on around Juma. Quite late in the day to have all this bird call activity. With the heat, I'm sure Juma's pretty hot today. It's actually surprising how active the birds sound for this time of day. Normally, this time of day, there'd be a bit of a lull, a bit of a quiet time. Seems like quite a good size herd. I think we're just catching the last bit of it, but there seems to be a fair amount of movement in the thicket there. So I think we've just caught the last of this herd moving through. And just see some trunks reaching up above the level of the trees in the background. I think there's quite a few more elephants there than we realize, hidden by the trees. We're going to head back to Lentor now in Kenya as we let these ellies wander off and carry on feeding. Oh, lovely little vervet monkey having some chill time. How sweet. Beautiful shot, whoever the zoomie is here. Such a lovely shot. Oh, okay, we've linked across to Safari Hook in Namibia. I think the feed froze at Lentor, so we having a look at Safari Hook, and that's great. We've got a gemsbuck or an oryx coming down to drink. We didn't have that species earlier, so nice to watch a new species coming down here now. Oh, and what do we have here? Oh, that looks like the male namaquadove again. Beautiful. Such pretty. They're so overlooked, these little namaquadoves, but the markings on them, they are just one of my favorites. I love them. So pretty. And you normally see them in pairs. Generally, where there's a male, there'll be a female fairly close by. Don't often see one on its own. We saw the pair earlier, so I'm sure there's a female somewhere close by here. They're also nomadic namaquadoves. So they'll either be resident or in an area, or they'll be nomads, kind of moving around where there's food, but they're not migratory. So similar in behavior to the black stork, which we were talking about earlier. Oh, the oryx or the gemsbok is having a drink. They are one of my favorite antelope species. They are just so beautiful. Looks like a female there. I can see her mammary glands between the back legs there. Quite unusual to be on her own, I would imagine. She seems to be hanging around with some other species, but often with oryx, the females will be together in little groups of other oryx. I never get tired of watching giraffe drink. The contortions they have to put their bodies through to get down to the water level to drink just never fails to amaze me. You can actually see the water moving down his neck if you look at that kind of front or bottom edge of the neck as he's drinking. Or should I say, as she's drinking, it looks like it could be a female. Got quite small, not very robust horns with hair on the top. Ossicones is the more correct word, rather than horns. They're not horns. She's going to spread her legs and have another few sips. Oh, look at that. Imagine if it was so difficult for us every time we wanted to have a drink of water. Quite amazing. Oh, there's another one drinking. Also looks like it could be a female. Oh, this looks like an interesting bird in the tree there. Let's have a look at that. Like a chanting goshawk. Which chanting goshawk is it? Probably, would that be a pale chanting goshawk? Always difficult to see with the light. But it does look to me like it could be a pale chanting goshawk. Which would kind of make sense because of the distribution. The pale chanting goshawk seem to be on the more on the western side of the country, and then the dark chanting goshawks more towards the east. There is an area of overlap, but with Namibia being way over on the west, it wouldn't be a dark chanting goshawk, so it looks like a pale chanting goshawk. Beautiful bird. And this bird is a near endemic to southern Africa, so you generally don't find it anywhere else other than in southern Africa. It's quite a special bird to see on our cameras. They also have an amazing relationship with honey badgers. I've had the privilege of watching a pale chanting goshawk. I think it was one of the parents teaching its youngster to follow a honey badger. It was the most incredible thing. We were in Galagadi and we watched this honey badger digging in the sand, and the mother or the father pale chanting goshawk was calling the youngster to come and sit on this low scrub as the honey badger was digging. And they obviously then disturb, and the honey badger would disturb things as it's digging and maybe miss something, and whatever it misses, the chanting goshawks can then catch. And so we literally watched the parents teaching the youngster how to do that. It would follow the honey badger and then call the youngster to come close, and then as the honey badger moved and carried on digging, it was calling the youngster to come every time. It was an incredible sighting. So yeah, they have a very interesting relationship with honey badgers. Honey badgers seem to have interesting relationships with a few different species of bird. Fascinating stuff. Really special to see that pale chanting goshawk. That's lovely. I can't believe the time has flown. We've only got about 3 minutes left of today's show. I mean, so many interesting things that we've seen today. I've loved it. Although we haven't seen any elephants at this waterhole today, you can see plenty of evidence that they're around. Lots of piles of dung. Victoria, it's been an absolute pleasure bringing you the show today. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. Loved all the questions and the comments. I've got some homework to do. I need to go and read up some more on woodpeckers as keystone species. That was really quite an interesting discussion we had there. So I want to go and do some more reading on that. Yeah, it's been a real privilege. I'm going to be back next week, bringing you some more on live at the waterhole. Really looking forward to it. There's a little springbuck in the I was going to say in the shade, but it actually doesn't look like there's much shade there. I think it has managed to find a tiny little bit of shade to lie in and ruminate. Oh, there we go. Typical of antelope. You see how they get up with their bottoms first and then the front end. Oh, it's been a real privilege to be here today, guys. Thanks so much for joining today and for sending through some really interesting questions and comments. And I'm really looking forward to this experience that we're going to be having with Live at the Waterhole over the next while. Really, really enjoyed my time with you today. And hopefully you'll join us again tomorrow, but please carry on watching today. There's a live drive this afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks again, guys. Bye-bye.